Okay, so we are down to our pretty much what is going to be the one of the last lectures of this course. We probably will have one more lecture on the quantization, which will be pretty short lecture. Uh, but the main lecture that is remaining, main topic that is remaining is the detailed treatment of the modulation block, which we have seen earlier that it plays a very crucial role in the operation of a communication system. You know, today when everybody knows about modems, you know, DSL modem, and at your home you have landline modem through which you get data connectivity. Um, so the modem actually is a combination of modulator and demodulator. Mod, demod. Those two words combined makes it modem. And modem is not, although the word modem is today in our day-to-day life, we use the word modem mainly to refer to uh, uh, the instrument that gives us data connectivity, internet connectivity at home. Uh, any digital communication system that you pick up, or even analog system that you make use of, ultimately is going to have a modem. Even when a even when your computer is uh, connected either wirelessly or through wireline, uh, through Ethernet, your computer has a modem, your cell phone has a modem, your satellite TV has a modem, everything has a modem. So modem makes a crucial component of a communication system. Excuse me. And so that is, as you may recall, is the final block in our schematic diagram of a communication system, and that is what we are going to take a look at in further detail in this lecture. Now, in a way, we have actually already studied the modulation and the demodulation scheme in the context of binary phase shift keying or on-off keying. We have studied this earlier, and it may seem as if what we did was sort of a pretty simple model of modulation and demodulation scheme. So specifically, that simplified model that we have studied previously, whether it is in the context of our midterm exam 1, where we had one problem on the on-off keying modulation, whether it is in the context of lab 3, where you did development of a BPSK modulator demodulator, or whether it is in the context of our Bayesian mathematics that we studied earlier on in the semester. Um, the model that we were looking at was a pretty simple model, and it had essentially some incoming bits that we denoted by a variable x. So x was a binary variable, it took values 0 or 1. And so these incoming bits were then sent to a bits to symbol mapper, which for BPSK was taking each bit 1 and turning into plus a volt, and each 0 bit and turning into minus a volts. So that was our modulator, the BPSK modulator. The output of the modulator was the BPSK symbol S, and that symbol was getting transmitted. In lab 3, actually even in your project that you did on convolution encoder, you took this symbol S and you sent it through a Gaussian noise channel. It was an additive channel in the sense that the transmitted voltage was getting added by this impairment, and this impairment N was Gaussian distributed, and we took its variance to be certain specific variance sigma n squared. And the combination, we call it R, which is just the addition of S and N, and that we took it as our noisy received symbol. And this was then sent to the demodulator. And you may recall that our demodulator was pretty simple. whenever R was greater than 0, we demodulated that R as bit 1, and whenever R became less than 0, our X hat was bit 0, and then that X hat was our output of the demodulator. So this was a pretty simple model of BPSK that we have studied earlier. We also saw that on-off keying is very similar. In fact, it is almost same as BPSK, except X equal to 0 is not getting transmitted with minus A volts. Instead, it is getting transmitted uh, with S equal to 0 volts. In other words, whenever bit 0 comes at the input to the modulator just switches off. It doesn't transmit any voltage at all. So that was the only change at the transmit side for OOK compared to BPSK. And you may recall that at the receiver side, uh, our rule became only slightly different. Instead of comparing R with 0, we now compare R with A divided by 2. And whenever R exceeded that A divided by 2, we decoded R as bit 1, otherwise we decoded that R as bit 0. So this is a simple model of two digital modulation schemes. Now you may say that, well, fine, I mean, this is good. We got some introduction to the digital modulation schemes, but this was pretty simple model. I mean, how can we say that this is really giving us a lot of mileage in terms of being able to appreciate the entire theory of modulation and demodulation and what goes on in the design of a modem that you make use of in your day-to-day life. Well, it turns out that although this model is simple, and it is indeed the case that it does not reflect all of the complexities of the design of a practical operational modem, it actually still uh, is quite powerful enough, surprisingly actually. It is surprisingly quite potent in terms of giving you a lot of conceptual benefits, conceptual insights. So let us look at what those benefits are of this simple model. So first of all, at least for the BPSK and for the OOK, this model tells us how the bits are mapped to the voltage levels that are getting transmitted. And actually this also allows us to formulate the energy per symbol, or actually for the BPSK case it is the energy per bit that the transmitter is going to ultimately make use of. And secondly, with this model we are able to conceptualize the main operation of the modulator, and we are able to actually draw some conceptual diagrams that are known as constellation diagrams. And in this constellation diagram we just show the voltage levels at which the bits are getting transmitted. And so the constellation diagram for BPSK looks like this. Whenever we send bit 1, we send certain voltage that is shown by this blue dot. In this case I have made A equal to 1, and so bit 1 is just transmitted at 1 volt, and bit 0 is transmitted therefore at minus 1 volt. So this diagram has two circles, two blue circles. These are called constellation plots. Constellation is a general term that is used, for example, in terms of when we look at the sky in the night. The formation of stars that we see is called constellation. And so here it seems like there are some stars here that are dotting this 2D plane. and therefore this has come to know as the constellation diagram. So it shows how bit 1 is getting transmitted at plus 1 volt, bit 0 is getting transmitted at minus 1 volt. Now the energy per bit or the energy per symbol is nothing but the square of the vector connecting any particular constellation point. It's essentially the square of this line. And so you can see that the energy per bit is going to be a squared in this case. Basically the square of this line, which is a squared, in this case it is just 1. But if this point was at 2, then energy per symbol will be 4. If it was at 1.15, then 1.5, then the energy per symbol would be 2.25, and so on. So it allows us to formulate the energy per symbol or energy per bit that the modulation scheme is making use of. This simple model also allowed us to encapsulate the effect of a channel, specifically the additive channel, that a lot of the times introduces noise which is Gaussian distributed. So that is another advantage that our simple model provides to us. And finally, not only that, at the transmitter we are able to conceptualize how the bits are getting mapped to the transmitted symbols, but at the receiver also we are similarly able to place the received voltages as well on such a diagram. And so that diagram may look like this. The blue dots are the ones that are transmitted, and the red dots are the voltage levels that the receiver receives. And the reason why the red dots are dispersed out from the blue is because of the noise. Maybe the transmitter sent bit 1 as plus 1 volt, but the noise made it close to 0.55, and so you got this red dot. Next time the transmitter sent minus 1 as the transmitted symbol, but the receiver got some other voltage, maybe around minus 1.2, and so then you would get a red dot over here. The way I got this diagram is by generating some 50 symbols randomly that the transmitter sent out, and for each of those 50 symbols, some of them were plus 1, some of them were minus 1, my simulator added random Gaussian noise, so I got 50 values of R, and I plotted each of those R values as a red circle, and then the diagram at the receiver turned out to be the one that is shown here. So this is again a conceptual diagram. It's sort of like converting the constellation diagram at the transmitter to the received constellation at the receiver. Now, one thing that you will be able to appreciate from such a diagram is the concept of error vector magnitude. The distance between or the vector going from the blue dot to the red dot is called error vector, because that essentially is the error between R and S. And what this diagram allows us to do is to sort of get an average value of the magnitude of such vectors. So here there are so many vectors that I can draw for each of the red points, and then corresponding to each such vector there will be a length associated, and if I take average of all those lengths, then I get a quantity which is known as error vector magnitude average. And what error vector magnitude allows us to do is to get an idea of the power of the noise. So if sigma n squared is small, then you would expect the EVM to be pretty small. All of these red dots will be bunched up around the blue one. If sigma n squared is large, then EVM will be large. In reality, as an engineer, you don't know what sigma n squared is, because the noise is introduced external to your design. Um, there is not a very easy way to measure the noise whenever a communication system is operational. But this concept, the idea of EVM, allows you as an engineer to kind of estimate the value of sigma n squared. And so EVM is a useful concept in the design of a communication system, and this type of constellation diagrams at the receiver allows you to understand that the definition of EVM. Okay, so moving on. Let us look at some other benefits of this simplified model. Um, well, one major benefit of this model is that it allowed us at the beginning of the semester, prior to midterm exam 2, it allowed us to formulate and derive the optimal detection method, at least for BPSK and OOK. You may recall this, it should be in your notes, it is in the lecture material prior to midterm exam 1. And if you remember, in exam 1 there was one problem at the very end which asks you to derive this optimal Bayesian BPSK OOK demodulator. And so that is this particular question. This question was asked for the OOK method, but you see that the model is exactly the one that we were talking about just now. Received voltage is S plus N if bit 1 is transmitted, otherwise it is simply N if bit 0 is transmitted. And in this case, using the posterior of X given R, you are asked to determine the rule that the Bayesian receiver should employ to decide whether bit 1 was transmitted or bit 0 was transmitted. And in fact, one of you showed to the entire class how this problem can be solved mathematically using just the Bayesian formulation. So the solution of that problem is written over here. And the answer was that whenever the received voltage exceeds S divided by 2, where S in this case is equivalent to our voltage A that we have defined over here. So the answer is that whenever the received voltage exceeds A divided by 2, then we estimate the transmitted symbol as being 1. So that was the answer that I was looking for that midterm exam problem. The other part of the problem asks you to consider that instead of Bayesian receiver, if you decided to use what is known as a minimum distance receiver, then what will be the decision rule? And we saw that actually the minimum distance receiver also comes up with the same strategy, that whenever R is less than A divided by 2, you decide that X is equal to 0 is transmitted. Whenever R exceeds A divided by 2, you decide that X is equal to 1 is transmitted. And so with that, we are led to this concept of decision boundaries. Typically, when bit 0 and bit 1 are transmitted with equal probability of 0.5, then the decision boundary is at the point at which the conditional PDF of R given X, which is the likelihood function of R, uh, when PDF of R given X equal to 1 meets PDF of R given X equal to 0. In this diagram, you can see that these two conditional PDFs, the likelihood functions, meet exactly at S divided by 2. And so that is the decision boundary. And so that decision boundary becomes the same as minimum distance decoder. Because obviously if R is less than S divided by 2, it is closer to uh, the constellation point for uh, bit 0, and if R is greater than S divided by 2, it is closer to the constellation point for bit 1. And then finally, in lab 3, we saw that the same type of uh, mathematics extends to BPSK receiver as well, where the decision boundary becomes R equal to 0 instead of R equal to S divided by 2. Okay, so our simple model allows us to formulate and derive the optimal receiver. Actually, it allowed us to apply the Bayesian method to the demodulation of BPSK or an OOK problem, and it showed to us that the demodulation strategy can be formulated simply by drawing a decision boundary. And so this also has a very clear visualization in terms of the constellation diagram at the receiver that we were drawing. So in this particular example, let us suppose that at the receiver we got this particular blue dot. By the way, the colors unfortunately are flipped. Previously the blue was indicating the transmit symbol and the red was indicating the received uh, symbol R. Here the coloring is exactly the opposite. Red is the transmit, blue is the receive. But the idea is the same. Suppose we get this particular symbol over here as our voltage R. In that case, what would our maximum likelihood receiver, which is based on the Bayesian principle, the question is what will it decide? So we have seen that the Bayesian receiver will essentially draw two error vectors, E1 and E2. E1 starts from constellation point for symbol 1, E2 starts from constellation point for symbol 2. So it will first of all draw two error vectors. And then it will choose that symbol as the most likely symbol to have been transmitted, for which the length of that vector, corresponding vector, is the smallest. And so in this case, obviously, the length of vector E1 is smallest, and so the receiver will say that bit 1 was transmitted. And that is why actually if you keep on doing this for all possible symbols, then you would realize that you will have to, you are essentially drawing a decision boundary at R equal to 0. This type of scheme will always say that bit 1 is transmitted if R is greater than this decision boundary. And otherwise, when R is less than the decision boundary, this type of scheme will decide that bit 0 was transmitted. And so this maximum likelihood receiver is turning out to be the same as minimum distance receiver. Okay, I think let's stop over here and continue in the next video.